Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. If you're joining us live, great to have you on. And if you're watching the replay, great to have you on. And be sure to drop a comment. Tell us where you're connecting with us from. So, whether you're watching the replay or you're joining us live right now, we want to get to know you. Just wave, just say hello, and we will be pleased to discuss with you or answer your questions. I'm so excited today to have Denise over with me today. And what's more exciting is I heard her on ACMP event, ACMP Ontario. Shout out to my ACMP folks. And as soon as I heard her talk about future of change management, two topics I'm interested in: future of work and change management. I was like, I have to have you on here, to speak to our audience and to speak to me as well, because I want to learn from you today. So, welcome, Denise. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
I know. So, just before we get into introductions, if you're joining us, we usually have the LinkedIn Live every other Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern. And where we just talk about all things change management and all things change leadership. So, really talk about change in terms of what's happening in the change space and what we need to do to be able to more effectively lead and respond to change better and faster. My name is Yvonne Rukiak-Pavetta, and I'm the founder of the Change Leadership. So joining me today is, as I mentioned earlier, Denise Kigover. She's a strategic advisor and transformation delivery lead at KPMG Canada, and she's in Toronto as well. And I'm in Toronto as well. We haven't met in person. We all meet.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's all online for now, but all of that is changing. And one of the things that I really got attracted to in Denise's profile was, really about building organizational capabilities of the future. So she works with organizations to, do that, to help them lead transformation, build organizational capabilities for the future, change management. And that's what we want to talk about today. So, Denise, tell me a little bit about you, or tell our audience about you. Tell us some of what you do when it comes to leading and driving change.
So first of all, I'm super passionate about change since the beginning of time, basically. And throughout my career, I one way or the other had my hands dirty with change management of various complexities. But the last 5 years, I have been working with KPMG. And my focus is on large scale transformations and helping organizations really understand the future and get ready for it. So
Yes.
I would say from a change perspective, and I will try to simplify it for the sake of the conversation, but my focus is on really understanding what will change and who will be impacted. How can we get those impacted stakeholders ready? And how can we in parallel also build the capability to manage change internally? Because change is always on, you know better than me. And it becomes really essential for all levels of the organization to be able to navigate this journey.
Awesome. You know what I like when I hear you speak? There are two aspects that I'm hearing, and I hope we touch on today. Is there's one aspect where the people who are going to be impacted by the change, people of the organization, they need to build their capabilities to be able to lead, drive, and to adapt to change,
Yeah.
and be prepared for the change. But there's also that aspect, which is people who are responsible for leading and managing change, which now says how we lead and manage change is a little bit different. Why I love this topic, and our topic today is future of change management, and we want to look at the trends in change management, is that I believe personally the way we lead, manage, drive change is changing.
Absolutely.
So and it may not be changing, the jury is still out of that, but I believe it's changing. And that's one of the things that we at the change leadership, we're very passionate about, is how do we lead and respond to change better and faster?
Yeah.
How do we empower folks to be able to lead and respond to change faster and faster? And that's what we want to talk about today when we think about the future of change management. So if you're joining us, you have any questions, just like I said, drop a message in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to speak to you. We want to answer questions. So, Denise, my first question to you is, even though I say so, but is the way we lead and manage change, is that really changing at all? Or is it just a fad? Is it changing?
Change management is changing. Um, I think it's inevitable that it's changing and it will continue to change because everything in the change management ecosystem is evolving. It's very digitized to begin with, right? More and more applications are out there that we can leverage when we do change management for, showing data and visualizing it, or for engaging stakeholders. And some examples are WalkMe. Probably the people that are on the line are familiar with that, but there are more that are up and coming that will allow virtual reality and really tailoring the engagement of stakeholders to an extent that we haven't even thought of before.
Mm.
So that's the evidence side of the change. But I think what's more important is that our role as change practitioners is evolving a lot to catch up with the rest of the world. And I was recently having a conversation with someone at the firm who defined the change management practitioners as the people that show up at the moments that matter, which I really liked. And, if you think about it, a change journey is full of moments that matter for the leadership team that is trying to introduce the change, or for the people that are going to be impacted by the change. And we have to show up at the right moment in the right time. And we need to show more empathy. We need to be this neo-generalist type of professional who pulls on many different disciplines and experiences to come forward with the right toolkit to manage the change.
I like that. So we're even going into the role of the change manager, and that's one area that I feel is changing. One of the things that you said that I love the thought of, but I'm going to say, Denise, already, I'm already thinking about a part two, because you talk about, new types of applications and, technology that we can use for change management, which was interesting because I saw an image the other day where they said, oh, this is project managers. These are all the new tools for project management. These are all the new tools for business analysts. But when it comes to change managers, there are no new tools. We're still using Excel. And I wanted to challenge that because I know for a fact that there's so many other types of tools on there, but there has to be something that is set for change managers that maybe we are not adopting ourselves, the new change tools out there. So that's another discussion. So
Yes, count me in for this one. I would love to. And, I think the other aspect that is really starting to change is, I mentioned change is always on, right? This will be the new norm. And there's no beginning can end. So in order to enable the organization, I think what we have to do is build the capability at every possible level. Change leadership is not only for the leaders anymore, and change should not be starting at the top only anymore. Change should be initiated at every level. Frontline employees and managers should be engaged throughout and really enabled to drive the change and to be our natural extension.
yes, I love that you're a lady after my own heart when you say, it's no change leadership is no longer for those folks at the top. It's a skill that if you want to position yourself to be able to lead and manage change or be relevant in the future of work, you need to be thinking, change leadership skills. Before, I think back to, you want to do a change, you bring in the change manager. Now everybody's being asked to lead and drive change because we see the changing structures. So what does that do for the change practitioner role? If everybody's being asked to lead and drive change, what role does the change practitioner play? You mentioned neurogeneralist. Can you go a little bit into that? What does that mean, first of all?
So I think I will use metaphors a little bit, but imagine the change practitioner is the conductor of the transformation, and the change practitioner is in the heart of the transformation.
Yes.
So a neo generalist is someone who is not, it's, you generalize, but you also specialize in very simple terms. But the whole concept is around you as change practitioners should tap into different disciplines that are not necessarily even close to what you do,
Mhm.
and pull from them and bring thinking, leading practices, and a toolkit that you can operationalize. And you also can really smoothly and seamlessly go through boundaries of different disciplines. So I, for example, do change management. It's my core skill set, my powerhouse. However, I also deliver transformations end to end.
Mm.
When I do change management, I pull a lot from program management and portfolio management, from sales and marketing, from
Mm.
HR, from um, DevOps, and just seeing patterns and trends and understanding what you can leverage from the tools that you have available and
Mm.
getting very resourceful is what I think will be the future for us. And
Mm.
as I said, you're in the heart of this. Um, Having the capability across the organization means that you have a very big orchestra in front of you and a lot of allies that you can pull in to drive the
Yeah,
journey.
exactly. I love that you use the term conductor. And one of the things that I've been saying for ages is let's go away from even thinking we're the superheroes that we're going to be able to do everything. You know, we bring in all these people with their specialist skills, the SMEs, the people who know it, and we're helping to bring it together. You know, there are times we've had discussions and talked about the role of the change manager, and you know, we've looked at things like coaching skills, facilitator. I love even where you bring in program management, HR, marketing, sales, because all of this is bringing in the tools, the capability, the skills to be able to lead and drive that change. And I like how you also describe what you say is you have your specialization, but you have generalist knowledge in a whole different area. I remember been on the project once, and I was the change manager, the program lead for the change management. And somebody on the project that was new turned to somebody and asked, is she another business analyst on this program? Because I was asking so many questions, and she's, questions that she felt this was my role as a business analyst to be asking. So why is she asking some of these questions? But I was able to do that because I was employing my knowledge and my expertise, because I used to be a business analyst. So when I need to, as a change leader, as a change manager or practitioner, when I need to dig deep into a situation to be able to help me support the stakeholder, not to do the work, but support the stakeholder, I know how to ask the right questions, even as a coach. So it's interesting you say that. So I love that as one of the potential trends we're seeing. So tell me, what are some other trends that you're seeing when it comes to the future of change management?
Oh, where do we start?
So you know what? Let's start with mention a few of them, and then we can deep dive into maybe three top ones that you're seeing.
Okay, sounds good. So, at the top of my head, I think, first of all, things are becoming even more complex
Mm.
than before, and they will continue, the complexity will continue to increase. So, this will inevitably impact change management significantly. And I think the key for us will be to really figure out how can we cut through this complexity and reduce the noise to
Mm.
help organizations actually focus on what matters and really drive the changes as they should. There is a lot of ambiguity, and it will continue to be a lot. I don't think this will ever go away. And at the same time, you see a lot of social almost revolutions happening, right? Um, New groups are forming from the perspective of female leaders, for example, or more and more leaders from minority groups that are coming with new demands and new thinking to the table. So when we drive change, especially in very complex stakeholder ecosystems, we need to consider these things and figure out what does this mean from a change management perspective? How are we driving experience? How are we really supporting these groups navigating through the journey? And you know what? Everyone is becoming more and more demanding. Customers are more demanding. The internal customers, the employees of the organization are starting to be more demanding.
The great resignation is an example because people are becoming more demanding. They want more.
Absolutely. And you know what? The great resignation is one side of the story. I think what's starting to happen is the great reassessment as a result of the resignation. When people start to really reassess values, what matters, what am I doing, what impact do I want to leave? And I think also what is interesting that we observe is the vigilant customer as a trend, where if stakeholders don't like the change you're introducing or you rub them the wrong way, they can go on a virtual riot and shut it down in a matter of hours or days even.
Yeah.
And this is something that especially for the public sector and policies and programs that are impacting a lot of people socially and financially is becoming really critical. How are you going to handle that?
Yes. Those are some big ones, And are there some more you want to share? Because I want to hone in on a few more, or on a few of what you said.
I think just the other one that I personally am super interested in is around what experience users or impacted stakeholders want to receive. And, there's, first of all, there's a lot of fear from the future. And people just want something that is consistent, something that will give them this sense of stability and understanding what's going on and what does this mean to me and everybody around me. So that's on one side. But on the other side, there is a trend, global trend called egonomics, where the whole point of it is that we're becoming more and more depersonalized as users, as employees, as customers. And we want recognition for our individuality, right? So this is one of the things driving social media. But what happens is that we will want everything to be tailored and to give us an experience that really recognizes us as authentic individuals. So how do we do this from a change management perspective?
Yes. That's interesting. There's so many things that we can even take it back to when we think about these trends. Some of the things coming to mind is when you take it back and you see what's happened in the last 2 years. There's just been an explosion of all of this coming. The pandemic really driving that big change. And things that we've been talking about, the future of work is. I say it's the future of work is now. All of those things that we're thinking are coming. It just accelerated with the future of work. So for somebody listening to us today, we've mentioned a few things. What would you say are the top 3 things that you need to be doing now, when it comes to leading and managing change? Because if we say we're in the future of work now, what are some of the practical things that people can start to do from a change management perspective? As for instance, you mentioned there's going to be a lot of complexity. So how do we start to even prepare to, what are some of the tactical and practical things we can do?
So I would say the things that will have the biggest impact, and some of these things we are already doing one way or another, we just have to become more consistent across the community, is, first of all, I spoke a lot about experience. We leverage a lot of design thinking when we do change management, and we marry the two. And the reason for this is that we want to put the experience of the impacted stakeholder at the heart of the journey. So if you leverage this, and, I will just focus on the empathy for a second.
Yes.
But when you are really, from a professional standpoint, leveraging empathy, it allows you to understand in depth your stakeholders, who they are, what exactly do they want from this change, how is it going to make their life easier, pain points, preferences, levels of influence, level of resistance. And when you do this, you can really figure out how to approach them and how to engage them in co-designing the future. So it's never a wasted effort. And I would strongly advise, what usually happens is a leader or a client will tell you, I know my stakeholders. I know them very well. I don't need you to tell me. But
If
then
we
I
had a penny for every time we heard that, eh?
yes, and then I usually say, just give me a chance, let me dive deep, and I bet you'll be surprised. And then when
Mm.
we start unpacking this, they are surprised.
Yes, because that's where unconscious bias comes into play because they're looking at things from their own lens, and it's not always from their own lens.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the other thing that I really like about this is that it also helps you to redefine the problem
Mm.
and what you're trying to solve for. And it's not so much about problem solving, it's about problem finding.
Mm.
When you do things from this empathy standpoint. So I'll just give you an example. I worked for Coca-Cola for several years, and I really love the brand. So I follow them and keep an eye on what they're doing. So right now they started really diving deep into their user group to determine what the next new flavor should be, which
Mm-hmm.
is a standard for any bottler or anyone who produces drinks. But they found out that one of the things that matters to people the most right now is the quality of their sleep. And this is evidence for increased complexity, a lot of noise, this notion of that we are trying to pack multiple lives into one day, right? The life of a professional, parent, friend, pet mom, whatever it is. So people want to have quality sleep. So Coca-Cola came up with the brilliant idea to create a drink that will actually enhance your sleep, which is bizarre because I still remember my mom in high school would forbid me to drink Coke after 2 p.m. because it was caffeinated. And now they're making a drink for sleeping. But what they did is through empathy and through design thinking, they uncovered the problem, and now
Mm.
they're creating a whole new mentality. And it will be a huge change management initiative to get customers to buy it. But
That,
it gives yeah, it gives you a sense of how you can shift the focus and actually drive change in many different ways.
but wouldn't that even be easier from a change management perspective? Because they did problem finding as opposed to going from a solution. Because if they've spoken to stakeholders, they've already identified that stakeholders need something to help them sleep. So they're not all of a sudden developing a product which they think people should have, and then they're trying to convince people to buy into that change. Instead, they've spoken, they've listened, they've been more empathetic with their
Exactly.
stakeholders. So now, when it comes to leading that change or implementing that change or driving that change, it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, resistance will be way less. Absolutely. You're very right.
I love empathy as something that we need to start to embrace more in change. That's one of the top change, and we have 10 change leadership skills that we teach. And one of the top ones is empathy, because empathy, just relating to your stakeholder, is so key. And I like how you said it's almost a quotable one. It's not about finding solutions, it's about finding the problems, because when you
Yeah.
find the problems, then you can find the solutions. But how do we manage that aspect as change consultants or change practitioners? Because when they bring us in to say, help us to lead this change, they want us to just start solution finding. They want us to get on it. They tell us, we know the stakeholders already. This is what we want you to do. They already have that sense of what they need to, what needs to be done. So sometimes it can be difficult to say, okay, give me time to do the stakeholder assessment or stakeholder analysis and get to learn more about the stakeholders. So how do you usually go about that?
That's a great question. And in all honesty, it depends on the client. It's not always a black and white solution. But listen, one thing that always works one way or the other is when anything you do is evidence based.
Mm.
And this is something very practical that we can do. Evidence-based delivery of change management is still not where it's supposed to be. I know that we're talking a lot about leveraging data and dashboards and visualizing change management effort, but it's still not there. And it's making it that much harder with tough executives who unfortunately still believe that change is a wishy-washy soft discipline when actually it's a science-based one. So I would say really bring data as much as you can. And we all do this during discovery. We try to understand the landscape. We look at artifacts when we talk to clients. Tell a story with the data to show them that actually, you know what, maybe you don't really know your stakeholders so much in depth, or you will solution for something for them, but maybe not in the right way. And you haven't really heard them or understood how is this solution fit into their day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what will convince them the most is that you enable the decision-making process through the data that you will bring. Decision-making is one of the biggest hurdles in change management
Mm-hmm.
because of a lot of organizational bias. And I am sure that you've been through this yourself, but there are many times when someone will say, this is how we will manage the change. I just know it in my gut.
Oh, tell me about guts. Or and then even when they see the evidence, it's a whole different kettle of fish. But let's stay on evidence for a second, because I know that's one of the trends that you spoke about, evidence and data.
Yeah.
So how do you even, where or what type of evidence do you even use to even get the process started? Because there are different steps. You have to even convince them to allow you to even do that survey or engagement or focus group or talk to the stakeholders to be able to even gather that data. Let's talk about some of the data. Where can we find data to even help us right now to even kick off the process? What type of external data is out there that we can leverage?
So I don't know about external data, but when we go to a client, for example, we first of all gather a lot of internal information. So anything from employee engagement surveys, focus groups that they have conducted before. Clients have gathered a lot of information. It's there, but sometimes we either don't get it or we don't ask the right questions, is what I find. And here comes the neo generalist point of view. Look at beyond the documents and the artifacts you think you should be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So look at financials, look at operational data about how processes are run or what are turnaround times. Look at customer data. What's the customer satisfaction?
Mm.
What feedback are you getting from customers? Look at sales data, look at HR data, and
Mm-hmm.
try to tell a logical story.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, I can tell that there's leadership misalignment, especially on large scale transformations. So when you interview the leaders or when you look at their agendas and priorities, you can already see that there is a mismatch. At the portfolio level, if you look at the initiatives that they're trying to drive, sometimes they're conflicting. Sometimes this conflict of priorities will tell you that there is lack of alignment. And I
Mm-hmm.
recently had a client who said they absolutely don't agree that there is lack of alignment at the executive level. And then we unpacked it through data and through some conversations and qualitative and quantitative data, and they were blown away.
Mm.
And it led to a lot of executive engagement work. We also, now I understand that not everyone has this at their fingertips, but there are different assessments that are not very complex, but will give you data points and prove your concept about certain things that you can quickly do as a survey. And usually clients agree if it's like contained in a group, if you don't reach out to the whole organization, obviously. So these are just some of the ways you can put your foot into the door and ask for data and additional data so that you can start the conversation.
I love, the really tactical examples that you've given and provided. One of the things that was coming to my mind, even with external, have you had to use external data in terms of saying maybe something from like Gartner or one of those
Yeah,
research bodies to be able
absolutely.
to say organizations of this size of similar industries, this is what they're experiencing, this is the numbers, this is the quantitative thing? Maybe just use some of those evidence or external data to be able to even open doors, because sometimes you have to convince the leaders to say why it's even valuable to do this data, to do this survey. So if you're able to say this is some of the data in the industry that is similar to yours, it might help for us to do some more digging into your own organization to understand these particular stakeholders.
Yvonne, you're touching on something very critical. Two things here. Benchmarking is something that we are asked on a daily basis to provide. However, it can be very risky for the organization and for the initiative if benchmarking is not properly done.
Mm.
Because what happens is that if you don't really understand why a certain thing worked in a certain organization or why it didn't work, you risk to lift and shift something that is not applicable to your client. And you end up giving them bad advice. So that I'm just cautioning. Benchmarking is an amazing tool, but just with caution. And then the other thing is try thinking beyond the industry. If there are some comparators, I'll give you again an example. A client of mine, insurance, wanted to understand how to better do succession planning. And the actual example that really caught their attention and we modeled their project after was an example from Coca-Cola again. Totally different businesses, totally different industries, but similar situation with similar implications, and the solution worked. So don't be afraid to look beyond the obvious benchmarks or beyond the industry.
Yes, parallel industry, vertical, horizontal,
Exactly.
because everything is being disrupted right now, and it's not really about remaining within your cocoon. And that's one thing I love about innovation, because innovation can, within one industry organization, can be taking something that already exists in another industry, in another country, somewhere else that is not being done, and introducing it into your own industry. And that's innovation, and that's simply disrupting that industry in the way things are done. So I love
Absolutely.
those examples that you've done. I'm just looking at the time and we're already over time, And so, Denise, we have to come back and continue this, because I want us to talk about tools, tools that we can really, really use. I want to challenge that paradigm that says that change management in itself is not evolving, and we keep on relying on things like Excel to do work, kind of thing.
Yes.
So would really love to talk about that. What do you think?
Just say when.
Awesome, awesome. I'm so glad to have you on this conversation, and I know we're going to have more conversations. So anybody listening, joining us to watch the replay, just drop a note, say hi, ask us a question, and we're really going to come back on this one again. And Denise, before we go, what's one last word you want to share with the audience to tell them about the future of change management and how we can prepare for it?
I would say don't forget to have fun. And everything changes, the good things and the bad things. So just, never stop changing and have fun as you do it.
Denise, I'm so glad you said that, because that would have been unorthodox, because sometimes we're just so focused on the change that we forget to enjoy the journey, the
I
process.
know.
We forget to learn. We forget to just like let it go, because we already enjoy it. So we know it's going to be a lot of work. So why don't we enjoy what we do? But sometimes in the midst of all of the change, we get frustrated because it's not happening our way. But if we can just sit back and enjoy it, it opens up our mind to more. So that was
Exactly.
that was a good one. Thank you so much. And hey, everybody, it's been great to have you. And do stay connected with us, stay connected with the page. We have our master classes that we hold every month and our free change leadership community. So we welcome you to really join us and be part of it. So for now, bye, everybody. I'll see you later.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye.